You ever wonder why some people just seem to get stuck in a cycle of toxic relationships? It's almost never one big, obvious thing. Nope, it's usually a series of these small, kind of unseen vulnerabilities. Today, we're going to break those traits down, not to blame anyone, but to really understand what's going on and, empower some change. So let's get right into it.
Wow. Okay. That is a really powerful statement, and it just cuts right to the heart of the matter, doesn't it? Now, let's be super clear here. This is not about blaming someone for being mistreated at all. It's about recognizing how certain internal patterns, things inside of us, can accidentally leave a door open. And understanding those patterns, well, that's the very first step to taking back your power.
So, where does all this even begin? Well, a lot of the time, it starts with behaviors that, honestly, look pretty harmless on the surface. Just being nice or easygoing. But when you dig just a little bit deeper, you find this people-pleasing pattern. And it's all driven by a deep, deep need for approval from the outside. Do you find yourself saying sorry all the time? I mean, for things that are not even close to your fault, like apologizing for asking a question or for just existing. It might seem like such a small habit, but it's often the very first clue that you're operating from a place of fear, the fear of being a burden to someone else. And running right alongside those constant apologies is this need to constantly explain yourself. You feel like you have to justify every single choice you make, every feeling you have. It's like you're permanently on trial, defending your right to just be you. And that comes from this deep, nagging anxiety about being judged or, misunderstood. And this right here, this is the absolute core of the people-pleasing pattern. Look, it's one thing to be kind and helpful. It's something else entirely to consistently sacrifice your own time, your energy, and your interests for somebody else. When that starts happening, your personal boundaries they start to dissolve, and your own needs get completely pushed to the side. Okay, and this is where it gets really, really insidious. When you're being neglected or ignored, you don't call it what it is. You call it endurance. You tell yourself you're just being strong, you're being patient. You end up on what the source material calls the shelf of neglect, and you convince yourself that you're just waiting it out. It's a really powerful and dangerous way we can deceive ourselves. So this actually goes even deeper. It's not just about our actions. It's about our core values. We're about to see how even our best qualities, things we're proud of, can get twisted around and used against us. So there's a world of difference between consciously choosing a simple life and just passively giving up your basic rights as a person. It's not noble to let someone disrespect you or to pretend you don't have needs. That isn't a virtue. It's a quiet form of self-abandonment. And it's the exact same story with generosity. I mean, of course, being generous is a wonderful trait, but if you don't have discernment, it just becomes a weakness. Trust me, there are a lot of people out there who are experts at exploiting kindness. True generosity is about lifting people up. Misguided giving just ends up enabling exploitation. Okay, so we've talked about the outward behaviors, and we've talked about these twisted virtues. Now, let's turn inward and take a look at the engine that drives this entire cycle, that relentless, nagging inner critic. This is something called self-flagellation. Every tiny mistake, every little slip-up feels like an absolute catastrophe. You just beat yourself up over it, feeling trapped. And this constant self-attack, it reinforces a really dangerous belief that you are so fundamentally flawed that you actually deserve to be treated poorly. All right, listen up, because this next point is incredibly important. We often get people-pleasing confused with caretaking, but they are not the same thing. Not at all. And understanding the difference, it's a total game changer. Let's just break this table down. The absolute key difference here is the motivation. Why are they doing what they're doing? The people-pleaser needs that external validation. Their self-worth is totally tied up in what other people think, so their boundaries are weak. The caretaker, on the other hand, is driven by a real, genuine desire to help. Their sense of self-worth comes from the inside. Now, don't get me wrong, caretakers can still be taken advantage of, for sure, but their core is so much stronger because it's not dependent on anyone else's approval. So, what happens when all of this, the people-pleasing, the misunderstood virtues, that loud inner critic, is just left to run wild? Well, it's not just about feeling a little down. It creates a real, damaging downward spiral. This slide here lays out that cycle perfectly. Look at step 1. It starts with social isolation. You pull away from friends, from family, anyone who might question what's going on. And that leads directly to step 2. You have trouble making decisions because you've lost trust in your own judgment. Then, as step 3 shows, you just endure the pain in silence. Which brings you to the final stop, step 4. You fail to seek out the professional help that could actually break the cycle for good. And through all of this, here's the most important thing to remember. None of these patterns just appear out of thin air. They all spring from a very basic, very human need. The need for love, for acceptance, for safety. People-pleasing is really just a flawed strategy to try and get those fundamental needs met. And that brings us to our final and most crucial point. Building yourself up doesn't mean putting yourself on that shelf of neglect we talked about. It means building healthy boundaries. It means deciding for yourself what you will and will not accept. It's a process, absolutely. It's built one brick at a time. So the real question isn't what's wrong with me. The real question is, what am I going to do to build something stronger? What's the first brick you're going to lay?